From WBNG TV, this is Action News at 5.
The kid had a heart of gold. He'd help anybody out.
An emotional crowd gathered outside a Pennsylvania court today demanding justice for Earl Youngs, the victim of a fatal hit-and-run crash. An email sent nearly 2 years ago has high-ranking Broome County officials on the defense. Plus, high temperatures, dry conditions, wind all mean higher risk for brush fires. What you should know during this time of year. Thousands gathered to say goodbye to a trooper killed late last week in the line of duty.
He's from as far as Alaska and Florida are here to pay final respects to Trooper Christopher Skinner.
We'll look at the brotherhood of state police and what it means to mourn the loss of a member. The health department gets involved after children handle roadkill at a local school. Where they got it from might be the most surprising. And Binghamton Mayor Rich David looks to add new positions to make the city safer. Plus, the road to college will look a little bit different for potential students. You'll see what's changed on the SAT test. And we're still working on more stories for Action News still to come in this half hour. For many things may be a little bit different around the office in the coming weeks. We'll bet you know why, probably, especially if you are basketball fans. This will come during the second half hour of Action News, while dozens of college basketball teams prepare to square off this week for the big tournament. 2 mayoral candidates face off in the village of Owego today. You'll hear from both candidates coming up on Action News at about 5:31. Plus,
this is Action News at 5.
With the conditions inside the building, we can't get in there. You can't move inside the building.
we have exclusive video from inside the home of a hoarder. The house destroyed in a morning fire. And starting today, Binghamton police are packing more than just weapons on the beat to tackle one of the city's biggest drug problems. Plus, we have an update on a fatal helicopter crash in the busiest section of Seattle. Good evening, I'm Dave Graber. 2 people in Endicott are homeless after a fire rips through their home on Roosevelt Street. Our Matt Porter has been covering the fire all day and is at the scene in Endicott, where he has more on why this fire was so difficult to fight. So Matt, exactly what was the situation like there today?
Dave, the fire that began in the basement here at the home behind me at 113 Roosevelt Avenue started at about 20 minutes to 9 this morning. Now, the couple who lived here, a middle-aged couple, they made it out before crews arrived. But when crews did arrive, they found a fire that was already out of control. Now, they were able to go into the basement and stop the fire at its source, but the fire by then had already spread up through the house all the way to the attic. Now, firefighters had to abandon fighting the fire from the inside because of what the fire chief called severe hoarding.
With the conditions inside the building, we can't get in there. You can't move inside the building.
I was shocked, came out to see it, and the flames were shooting out the window and up the roof.
Now, what you are seeing is exclusive video inside of the house after the fire. Now, fire crews said debris was up to the ceiling or at least waist high in most of the home. The fire chief called this classic hoarding behavior. Now, it took the firefighters about 3 hours or more to really put the fire out. You can see right here is the example of what was going wrong. All this pile of stuff just falling out of the home. That was what was stacked piles high that you just saw earlier. Now, the fire chief says they encounter hoarding not frequently, but when they do, it makes fighting that fire and putting it out quickly almost impossible. Live here in Endicott, I'm Matt Porter, WBNG TV, Action News.
Yeah, that's a good point, Matt. Thanks very much. Meanwhile, the investigation is underway into what caused a fire to business in Johnson City. It happened just after 5 this morning at Hank's Warehouse at 101 Lester Avenue. The Johnson City Fire Department says there was smoke coming out of the heater vents when they arrived. Firefighters forced their way in through the first floor door. The fire department says the fire started in a utility room where the flames were contained, but there is some smoke damage that is now located all throughout the building. It took crews about 25 minutes to put out that fire. New York State Police arrested a Groton man after they said he was making methamphetamine in a home. Troopers said today they arrested 27-year-old Jason Harvey after executing a search warrant at the home in Groton. He was charged with 1 count of criminal possession of a controlled substance and 1 count of manufacturing methamphetamine, both felonies. Harvey was arraigned in Groton Town Court and taken to the Tompkins County Jail on $15,000 bail or $30,000 bond. Harvey is scheduled to be back in Groton Town Court on March 21st. What's commonly referred to as the miracle drug, a medication that reverses the effects of heroin overdoses, is now in the hands of officers on the front line. And as our Brandy Bailey tells us, it'll be used now on the street. Brandy.
Dave, it's called Narcan, and it's a Narcan spray that the Binghamton police officers will now carry with them on the streets. The Binghamton Police Department has purchased 25 Narcan kits for the officers to carry. However, first there will be several weeks of training involved. The Narcan spray helps to recover an overdose patient to normal breathing. It also reverses the symptoms of a heroin overdose, providing short-term relief while a person is sent to the emergency room. The department will be spending $1,500 on the kits.
The police officers are the first responders, and when seconds count, it's just one more tool they have to possibly save someone's life.
A growing epidemic in the community, heroin is a leading drug on the streets and one that's caused several deaths already just this year. While the police department is trying to keep drugs off the streets, they say it's also their responsibility to save lives and help people recover from drug addictions.
Yeah, it's good to have another tool in that fight. Thanks, Brady.
TV. This is Action News at 5.
When you live in our hearts, you will live forever.
An emotional goodbye today in Johnson City for a fallen police officer.
And you have to be here. It's not something you want to be, but you have to be here.
Law enforcement spoke to us on the character of Officer David Smith. And organizers plan a thank you to those who contributed to constructing the memorial for another tragic event. Johnson City police officer David Smith was laid to rest today. The funeral service at Sarah Jane Johnson Memorial Church left standing room only. Our Brandy Bailey is live outside the church to recap the service.
Erica, I'm outside of Sarah Jane Johnson Church with a roadway and a parking lot behind me that was once filled with more than 500 law enforcement officers, all in formation in honor of Officer Smith. Now inside of the church, family, friends, and law enforcement officers stood tearful as the casket was brought to the front of the church. Johnson City Police Chief Joseph Zukuski led the line of law enforcement officers into the church, followed by the family. Prayers were read and songs were sang in memory of Officer Smith. Smith's uncle read the family eulogy, creating a timeline of his life. The one thing that always stayed constant for Officer Smith was his dream of becoming a law enforcement officer.
All his life, that's what he wanted to do. And he was fortunate enough to be able to do that. He loved his work. He loved where he worked. He loved the people he worked with.
The burial was held at the Shenango Valley Cemetery for family and the Johnson City Police Department. A reception held after that at St. John's Church. Live in Johnson City, I'm Brandy Bailey, WBNG TV Action News.
Thank you so much, Brandy. The procession for Smith's funeral made the 5-mile trip from Chase Funeral Home in Port Dickinson to Sarah Jane Johnson Church in Johnson City. Led by motorcycles and police cars, their sirens were silent in honor of Smith. Sitting in the front seat of one of the police cars was Smith's son. At the end of the funeral, the procession started back up, taking Smith to his final resting place in the town of Fenton. Standing in formation outside the Sarah Jane Johnson Church were hundreds of members of law enforcement. They came from all over New York State and some from across the country. Our Kelly McCarthy tells us more about the brotherhood that sticks together through the good and the bad.
Erica, we've heard from Police Chief Joseph Zukuski saying this week that for many people in uniform, it's more than just a job, it's a calling. And the hundreds of people who stood outside the church during Officer Smith's funeral are more than just co-workers, they're family. Law enforcement I spoke with say it's a brotherhood. Agencies from all over New York State and surrounding states came to honor DW's life and help our local officers cope with their loss.
It can happen to anybody at any time, not knowing the circumstances of each call. And we all understand that, we all know that's what we're sworn to do. Unfortunately, nobody ever wants to go through this.
It's a little easier when we band together and, we grieve together, show our respects to the family, and it helps everybody to get through it.
Some knew Officer Smith, but many of them did not. But they still didn't hesitate to travel here for his funeral because they say the band of brothers always sticks together. There will be another candlelight vigil in honor of Officer Smith tomorrow night at CFJ Park. The gathering will start at 7:30 p.m. and organizers of the event ask for people to bring their own candles and to have stories and memories of Officer Smith ready to share.
After the funeral services ended, family and friends made their way outside the Sarah Jane Johnson Church for a special flag ceremony. A flag that laid on top of Officer David Smith's casket was folded by law enforcement and handed to Smith's 11-year-old son. Police Chief Joseph Zukoski then gave Smith's mother and wife folded American flags. The special dedication was very emotional for the family, Chief Zukoski, and everyone watching. A 21-gun salute then followed and taps was played.